A child that is born in South Africa is not a South African citizen, especially if both parents are from other nationalities. What we do as a Home Affairs, we take the responsibility because we can't have people who are stateless. When that particular child is born, we issue what we call a notice of birth, which means we notify the country of origin that there is a citizen of yours that has been born here. It is therefore the responsibility of those parents to take the notice of birth to the embassy and register the child with the country that the child is belonging to. Mother being South African and the father being Mozambican. In those particular instances, there are internal control systems that we will have built in to make sure that what is being claimed is true. For instance, we require records of birth, we require documents of the mother and so on. Yeah. But in the case of a father, because remember, a father Taban can come and say, look, I've had 10 children this year, and all of them, they are with different mothers, and as such, we have to then administrate paternity tests to make sure that by blood, that particular child is entitled for citizenship. The mother being South African and the father being Mozambican. In those particular instances, there are internal control systems that we will have built in to make sure that what is being claimed is true. For instance, we require records of birth, we require documents of the mother and so on. Yeah. But in the case of a father, because remember, a father Taban can come and say, look, I've had 10 children this year, and all of them, they are with different mothers, and as such, we have to then administrate paternity tests to make sure that by blood, that particular child is entitled for citizenship. The child follows the status of the parent. If the parent, for instance, is in the country on a long stay visa or a PR, permanent residence, that particular child will follow the status of those of their parents. It does not mean that they are then automatically inserted into the population register as a citizen of South Africa. Other people who are naturalized, there is a very clear process of naturalization. It is very transparent. It is set up according to the contributions you will have made in the country or that you are still going to make in the country. For instance, other countries, they scout doctors around the world and say, hey, look, a first doctor who did an ear transplant, and then they offer that person naturalization on the basis of the contribution that they are going to be made. But that is not a direct entry by birth into the national population register. You are just being invited to be naturalized because we recognize it can be in sports, it can be in academia, it can be in various areas where your skills are seen as very important for the country, and the reporting for that goes up until at a parliamentary level. So it's a very transparent process. It will not have happened, without anyone knowing or without any records. But the bottom line is that if you are a citizen by birth, you must have been born of South African parents. I have two parents, stayed in South Africa, were born here before, and they had South African citizenship. They then moved to another country, say Italy, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, wherever that they move to. And then the child, when it grows up, then says, look, my parents were actually South African citizens, and I want to claim my citizenship on the basis of descent, that these parents of mine were actually South African. That is allowed. You can apply for that. It is within the law. Even if the birth is not registered by us right now, whether you are born in a mission in Angola and your parents are South African, and then they will be issued with a notice of birth in Angola, and then that notice of birth will then eventually come through to us. So it really does not matter in a case where on our system that citizenship is by blood, because it doesn't matter where you are born. You must just be born out of South African parents, and so long as we have evidence that is conclusive that your parents are actually South African, then you deserve the right to be admitted into the population register as a citizen. And if you are adopted, there is then a court process that says, look, Njabulo Nzuza, you are now formally the parent of this particular child. And by being a parent of that child, it means I take responsibility for that child. So if I am a South African, then that child immediately can apply for citizenship because they qualify, because I have adopted that particular child. It's not a decision that is taken by Home Affairs. It is a decision that is taken through courts and other legal instruments. Ours is just to administrate the registration, since the court has already declared that I am responsible for that child. That particular child is mine by law. You can't be born of Mozambican parents, both of them Mozambican, and both of them do say that, yes, this is our child, we have come to South Africa, we are staying in South Africa. How we are staying in South Africa? We are staying through a PR process. When you are born, immediately when you are born, you do not even have to wait to be an adult. You must go and get your PR application so that you follow the status of your parents. We must not create confusion that people who are born outside of South African parents can, at their own decree, at any point and stage, then come and say, look, I want to be a South African. It will obviously have to be the issue of naturalization on the basis of what you would have contributed. But for children whose parents actually left the country, stayed in another country, and then the child says, look, my parents were South African, they can come back and apply and get citizenship. But the number of years you have stayed in the country or in any country can never say how are you when you become a citizen of that country. You can stay in the country 10 years, because remember, some of the people who will stay in the country will come in illegally and stay in the country for 10 years, without being detected, without being noticed or anything. And then they come in after 10 years and say, look, I've been in this country for 10 years, therefore naturalize me. The process cannot work like that. And that is why the major principle in which countries base the issue of citizenship, it is either by land, whether you are born there, or either by blood, which means one of your parents must be there. Can't be just be the issue of you having stayed a certain number of years. Obviously, people enter into the country via various visa regimes, and then they seek